Okay, it looks like most everyone is here. Hello and welcome. I'm Marisa Gregg. I'm our Vice President for Communications and Marketing at Holy Cross. Welcome to our webinar tonight. We know that you have a lot of questions. We'll answer the prevalent questions that have come in, and we'll take some live questions in tonight's webinar. We know from experience that we won't get through all of them tonight, so please be patient as we get you the answers in the coming days. This is all new information to us too, and we're quickly working through this, all of the details. Some of you were with us last night, so you may hear some of the same information. We'll capture the questions that you submit tonight, and we'll continue to update the FAQ on our website. And we will also continue the weekly updates in the coming weeks with more information. If you don't see the answer to your question in either of these places, then please email coronavirus@holycross.edu and we will get you answers. With that, I will turn it over to Father Burrows.
Thank you, Marisa, and welcome seniors and your families. You know, I have some prepared remarks to share with you, which I'll do in a second, but please let me express to you my sadness and sorrow for the decisions we've had to make and for your senior year, which is so important. You know, after all we went through last spring with seniors from last year, it just is very disheartening to realize that so many things that we've tried to put together and put in place with contemporary experiences that have been happening the last few weeks and things that we're dealing with, we've had to make a hard decision. And I know you're carrying the burden of that. And I'm very, very sorry that this is happening. We'll do everything in our power to make this a meaningful year for you. And please know that we've been working very hard to care for you in this time. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I know that for many of you and for me, Monday's announcement that the college is going predominantly online has been very difficult and painful. You know, for many months now, the world has been suffering from a pandemic that shows no real signs of letting up, and it is spreading across our country in new waves of contagion. While we wait first for the development and then the availability of a vaccine, many of you and in our country have faithfully donned masks and observed social distancing and limited outside engagement. And where this has been implemented, the rate of spread dramatically drops. Sadly, others have grown understandably impatient with restrictions and then tragically ignored safety precautions. And there the virus either resurges or continues to spread. And unfortunately, we're finding that schools reopening and sports teams seasons beginning and bars and restaurants doing business and large social gatherings have demonstrated that the virus is very active and dangerous. How schools and colleges and universities are responding to the pandemic varies greatly as our realities differ greatly. Each one of us has different resources and different needs. Some of us have medical schools and large research centers in busy urban areas, while others are liberal arts colleges in more remote locations where there are few nearby medical centers. Some are highly residential, while others are primarily commuter students. Some have large graduate populations, while others are solely undergraduates. Consequently, responses to the challenges of this moment are unique to each and rarely comparable. In just the last few weeks here on campus, it's become clear that promised testing and monitoring processes may be delayed due to the rapidly increased volume across our state and regions, colleges and universities as they reopen, and all the technical aspects of serving those tests and administering them that goes along with it. At the moment, the Broad in Cambridge is responding strongly. We have become aware, though, that local resources to coordinate and manage contact tracing are limited. And the new recommended restrictions on inside dining and managing the spread of the virus among our food service staff will severely limit our ability to feed our campus community. As many of you know, the governor recently intensified the state's requirements regarding quarantining, and he has restricted the size of inside and outside gatherings again. Further, we don't have significant backup staff for those who provide essential services like student life, public safety, and health services should they contract the virus. If our full complement of students were to move onto our campus, resources to manage an outbreak and provide hundreds of beds for isolation and quarantine space for those who have been exposed could quickly close us down. And so with no indoor dining, severely restricted spaces for limited social gatherings, the necessity of now increased social distancing in athletic and exercise facilities, even with tents and reimagined classroom and social spaces, life on campus would be severely and increasingly limited for our students. I know that the decision to move to a remote fall is incredibly disappointing, and I understand and appreciate that some of you disagree with it. I hope, though, that there is some comfort in knowing that our main priorities in making this decision were the health and the safety of our students, and also that of our faculty, staff, and our local community. Only when it became clear through a confluence of factors that we could not move forward with bringing 2,000 students to campus and meet our responsibilities to them did we entertain the difficult decision to change course. Yesterday, another Worcester University postponed its opening, and today another decided to go fully remote. In the past 2 weeks, over half of the Patriot League universities have gone remote as well. I also understand that this late decision made it all the more frustrating. Because of the movement of the pandemic has been erratic and unpredictable, all institutions are constantly scrambling to find new responses to rapidly changing situations. Our COVID-19 working groups, all 15 of them, were working full steam ahead for the last several months, while lately they began watching complex realities quickly change. With our Board of Trustees' decision to pivot our mode of operation last Saturday, our committees have now had to shift their focus and are planning once again. They are scaling up alternate plans that they had in reserve to create a robust and meaningful experience for our students who will now be studying remotely. They are supplementing the opportunities for experiential learning, internships, speakers, dialogues on important topics, civic engagement, and spiritual growth, with even more opportunities for social interactions, recreation, and small group communities virtually. And frankly, they are as exhausted by all this as you are. But I can assure you that while the experience will certainly be different, because of their hard work, students will be busy and engaged, supported and mentored, and be part of this community whether they are on campus or not. This dramatic change raises many emotions and many questions for you. As Marisa indicated, we've tried to anticipate your biggest questions, and we answer them on the FAQ section of our website. We're going to answer some more that will come on the chat feature tonight. I ask once again for your patience. We are quickly working through the many implications of this decision, and we're going to continue to keep you updated. I'm going to also ask that you frame your questions and concerns in a respectful manner. I know that can be difficult when faced with deep emotion, but please remember that my colleagues have spent day and night this summer forgoing time with their own families, focused on your health and safety, and creating a meaningful remote academic and student life experience for you this summer in the face of this pandemic. I think we all recognize there are no good options in this dangerous time. Our administrators and staff will do their best tonight to answer your many questions and get you answers quickly to the ones they are unable to answer here. Now, it's clear that our lives have been filled with mounting losses as the months have moved on. And as we said at the beginning of this pandemic, uncertainty is our new given. And that's true not just for higher education, but for all aspects of our lives. In this community that values tradition as much as ours, it is very painful and disconcerting to have the key milestones of our next year canceled or modified, at least for this semester. Here and across the world, everyone has had to change their routines and expected ways of living and working. And the global suffering that we see every day on the news and the internet should help us to put our own experiences into a larger perspective. I hope too that in the midst of all this disruption, there are also moments of joy and surprise. Hopefully, we are becoming more reflective and grateful for what we do have. On Sunday's Saturday Zoom call with our board of trustees, I heard our newest graduate on the board talk about her experience as a graduating senior last spring. While she missed so much, she was amazed at how friendships had grown remarkably more significant and more intimate because of shared hardships. I recently heard a colleague who is a mother of 2 Holy Cross students describe incredibly meaningful dinner conversations that aren't possible during the year when her son and daughter are living on campus. And at dinner in our Jesuit community, I have listened to my brothers talk with excitement about the online classes they have been taking in order to teach more effectively and creatively this semester. I have no doubt that we will get through all this together. You may be at home, but you will still meet friends and develop bonds that will be with you for years to come. Your courses may be conducted via Zoom, but you will engage in dialogue about the meaning and purpose of life in these days of pandemic, financial instability, racial injustice, and a national election. You will still treasure great literature, new historical perspectives, scientific discovery, and sociological insights. You will still be pushed to achieve more than you thought possible and explore new creative approaches to your field of study with the advice and support of your faculty, your staff, and your friends. And finally, as I have said before, your character will be shaped forever by this moment in time when adversity invites all of us to become more thoughtful, more inventive, more socially engaged, and more grateful, not only for what we have been given, but grateful for the opportunity to discover how we are called to share what we have been given for the survival and the flourishing of our struggling world. Now, before I hand it back to Marisa to facilitate questions and answers, I want to address a few of the main questions that we have received since Monday. One is, first, you have asked us why we are allowing certain students to return to campus and how we decided on the exceptions. Well, in addition to the health and safety of all of our community members, it is also a priority and our responsibility to ensure that all of our students are able to progress academically this fall. For some students, academic success depends on their access to campus resources and facilities. They may not be able to reliably access the internet or have space or other resources at home to be able to participate in learning remotely. They may have other personal situations that make it necessary to be on campus in order to continue to progress. Other students require access to facilities, especially studios or research labs, in order to meet specific academic requirements this semester, without which their graduation could be delayed. And finally, we are allowing members of certain winter athletics teams to access training facilities as their safety depends on their access to proper training in advance of their season. Second, you have asked about tuition, given that the academic and student experience will now be remote. I fully appreciate the significant investment all of our families make to send their daughters and sons to Holy Cross. Regarding tuition, the Board of Trustees voted to eliminate the planned annual increase and rolled back tuition to last year's rate. We have eliminated some of our fees, and we are adjusting our financial aid packaging. This is what we feel we can do at this time to sustain all that we are trying to accomplish. I acknowledge that the experience students will have remotely will be different. There is no question that it will not be the same as being on campus in person. However, your courses will still be Holy Cross courses developed and taught by our faculty. These dedicated faculty members are committed to teaching, to being accessible to students, and to providing students with personalized attention, advising, and support. They have designed and redesigned their courses to ensure that students will make connections with them, with the material, and with each other. Their courses will all be live or synchronous to enable vigorous conversation, and classes are being kept small so that all students can participate actively. This fall, you, our students, will continue to have co-curricular opportunities including enhanced internships, research, civic engagement, and other experiential learning. Online social activities, small group communities, and opportunities for spiritual development and physical wellness are now being developed. There will be extensive opportunities for students' growth and development of mind, body, and spirit, as well as opportunities for meeting and building lasting relationships with peers. The experience that our students have at Holy Cross lasts for life. Our students leave with new perspectives, with communication and critical thinking skills, with a sense of responsibility to their communities and to the world, and with a network of extraordinary and dedicated individuals among our alums who will support them throughout their lives. I want to end by talking for a minute about the spring semester, since many have raised questions about that. And I want to assure you that we want nothing more than to be back in the spring. And for seniors, I know how this is particularly important for you. And this is what we are planning for today. But as our famous alum, Dr. Tony Fauci, has repeatedly said, the timeline is the pandemic's and not ours. Hopefully, we will all be in a better position to mitigate spread and to care for students who contract or who have been exposed to the virus over the course of this semester, and can then make appropriate decisions about spring as we learn a lot more in the next few months. Thank you, and now I turn it back to Marisa.
Thank you, Father Burrows. We have some questions coming in, and we had quite a few submitted in advance. So I'm going to start with Dean Murray. We had some questions about the timing for the decision, and Father Burrows talked about this a little bit, but can you talk about that in relationship to the room assignments? Why did we do room assignments and then quickly make this decision?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to, Marisa, thank you. First, folks, I want to acknowledge the sense of loss and grief that you feel, particularly at the start of your senior year. And I want you to know that we are feeling the loss too. There's just no way around it. This is very, very hard. I know the timing of the room assignments and then the decision to go remote was really confusing for you. And it adds to your great disappointment. Many of you felt like you were reassured that we would start the year as planned when you went through the housing process. And that's understandable. And I know, of course, that it feels like the rug has been pulled out from under you. And I am really sorry about that. Since June, our goal and our sincere hope really has been to have as many students on campus and to have as close to a normal semester as we possibly could. And we have been working overtime to reach that goal. And until the other day, we believed we would be able to move forward with the fall as we had planned, even if it was going to be a little different. And so we continued with our plans. If we had not allowed you to move through the housing selection process last week, you would have been in a mad dash to complete everything this week, and we would not have been ready to welcome you at the end of the month, and we would have had to delay the start of the semester. So while we were trying to figure out what all the variables were and if there were any workarounds, we went through with the housing selection process, hoping beyond hope that we would be able to find a way to open as planned this fall. And I am sorry that it didn't work out that way.
Thank you. Can you also speak to why we didn't choose a cohort to come back? Some schools are allowing first years to come back or seniors. Why weren't we able to do something like that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. You know, as you heard from Father Burrows just now, late last week, a series of variables emerged that really indicated we could not safely host a large population of students on campus. And a meaningful cohort, like the senior class perhaps, that we don't have enough room on campus to allow each student to have their own room. So one student per room is really what's required And so as a cohort would have been still too large for us. So we made the very difficult decision, and I know disappointing to so many of you, that instead we would allow exceptions for the small group of students who Father Burrows mentioned because their personal or academic circumstances really require them to be on campus.
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about what we will be doing and how we will ensure that seniors will have a memorable fall semester, and also will events like Senior Ball that were scheduled for the fall now take place in the spring?
Sure. Some of this, I have to be honest, I am not entirely sure how to answer because, again, just like you, we have just learned this information and are trying to scramble to switch gears. So as with the class of 2020, we know that COVID-19 is a major disruption to your senior year, and we will work with you to find meaningful ways to celebrate your senior year. It's a big deal, and we want to celebrate that with you. I am holding out a lot of hope that you will be able to be together in the spring, and I know that you join me in that hope. And in the meantime, we will work with you to figure out what makes sense for you for this fall, because we want your fall to be special as well. Thank you.
I am going to turn to Provost Freege for some questions. We have a number of questions about the academic calendar, and will it go back to the original plan? And people are asking about fall break.
Yes, thank you for that, Marisa. The academic calendar was set in May after extensive consultation with the faculty, the department chairs, the Academic Governance Council. And when we set the calendar, we actually didn't know what the fall semester would look like. We were in a position where we didn't know whether we would have some students on campus or all students on campus. And so we did end up with a compromise. And I think that we knew that it would be a calendar that wasn't ideal, but it was a calendar that could serve all of our purposes. And so we're not going to make any changes to that academic calendar for the fall. We're not going to make changes to the class schedule for the fall. So the classes that you're in, you will remain enrolled in, and we're not going to change the times of classes. I think that when the faculty come back in September, we will have a conversation about the spring and think about what the spring calendar can look like, and you'll be notified of that as soon as we have one. So thanks.
And will the class times go back to their original times, or will they still be spread throughout the day?
No, the class times are going to still be spread throughout the day there. And in some sense, actually, that's an advantage, both in person and on Zoom. We really did want to create more space between classes. If students were going to have back-to-back classes, it's hard to get from one Zoom to another. And so having a little bit of extra time between classes actually works in both contexts.
Will the class sizes change? There's some questions about can we get into classes now that we weren't able to before?
So two different things. We're not likely to change the class sizes just because they're online. First of all, most of the classes were online, as you know, even before this decision to not have students come back to campus. We want the classes to be small. We want the faculty to be able to engage you online. And so we do not want to have large impersonal classes online or in person. So we're not likely to change the class sizes. We have added additional sections of some classes, and we will return to open enrollment on August 24th, and that will give you an opportunity to see which classes are open and make some changes to your schedule if you need to.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the online classes, and will they be live or pre-recorded, or what might they be like?
So the faculty, as Father Burrows has said, had been working all summer on professional development to create these new courses, working both in groups with one another and with consultants that we've brought in from the outside to think about, right, what an online course could look like. all of the classes will have in-person synchronous components. So part of every single course will be an in-person opportunity, an opportunity for the whole class to be together. We do want to facilitate discussion with your classmates. We do want to facilitate engagement with one another, even as you're engaging with the material. It's possible that faculty will provide some of the material on recording. So for example, you can imagine a class where the faculty member might lecture about some material and give you a half-hour lecture to review before you come into the class to have the discussion about the material. So, but every class will have some in-person components.
Thank you. And while I have you, could you talk a little bit about career planning and counseling and what that will be like?
Absolutely. So this is a really important year for you as you think about what your next steps are, and the Career Development Center is ready and willing to work with you as you think about your job search. You might have been participating in a number of the virtual events that they've been offering all summer long. They've been bringing in alumni to talk about careers in various areas, just to give you a sense of what things you might want to explore. We will be having virtual job fairs, and actually we expect that we may have more employers at those job fairs because they will be virtual, and so more employers will be able to participate. In addition, we've already put a call out to the alumni network and will continue to engage the alumni network. They want to support you as well. When we put out a call over the summer to ask them for remote internships, they created a number of new internships for us on the fly. So the alumni network will also be there to support you as you're thinking about your career search. But the Career Development Office is prepared to offer a wide variety of virtual opportunities as you think about what your next steps are.
Thank you. Dean Murray, I'm going to go back to you. We have some questions about students who live off campus. So do we know whether students who live off campus will have access to campus facilities?
Okay, we are still in the middle of deciding that. Our immediate priority is to house the students who meet the exception to live on campus. And so we have not yet had time to make the decisions regarding access to campus facilities for students who are living locally. And I do expect to have decisions about criteria for access to campus for those students in the coming days.
Thank you. We did get some questions about whether off-campus students will still be subject to Holy Cross oversight.
Yeah, and I can certainly understand why people might be asking that question. So folks, I guess the good news and the bad news is that our student code of conduct and our community commitments that we developed for this COVID era are still in effect for students who are living off campus. The other piece is now if you're living off campus, you are just like the other citizens of our local communities. And so you would be then subject to local laws and ordinances. And I know this might be a little bit different for you. So Dean Irish and Public Safety are working with Worcester Police Department to host webinars for students who are living off campus, so that you know what's expected of you from the city's perspective, and you'll have a chance to ask some questions of Worcester PD as well.
Thank you. Do you have any more information about what the spring might hold for seniors, even if they're not here? What might we be doing to celebrate them, make sure that they have a really special spring semester?
Oh, yeah. We really want you to have a special spring semester. Absolutely. I think I speak for everybody, actually, when I say how badly we want you to be back on campus, and we want to be able to celebrate your accomplishments. You know, right now, our plan is to go forward with the January term that Provost Frugi was just speaking about, and then, of course, spring semester. We will continue to monitor health and safety conditions, and we will open assuming it's safe to do so. And if it's safe to do so, right, we will continue to work with you, just as I said before, about the ways to make your spring semester, your senior year, a special one for you.
Thank you. I am going to go back to Provost Frigie with some questions about grading for the semester, and will that be PNP again, or how will that work?
So last spring, as you know, we made a change in our pass no pass policy to allow students to take up to 2 courses during the term on a pass no pass basis and count those courses towards graduation. That change was made in recognition of the fact that last spring was a disrupted semester. You came to campus, you were involved in courses, and we had to flip them online halfway through. This semester is a different semester. We are not anticipating a disrupted semester. You're going into these courses understanding that they're online courses. The faculty have spent the summer working on creating these online courses, creating different kinds of assessments, different ways of assessing your learning in online courses. And so we are planning to revert to our old PNP policy, our regular PNP policy, which is that students can take a course pass no pass if it's an overload course.
Thank you. And can you talk a little bit about lab classes and students who are pre-med or doing research? How would that work?
So students who are doing research for credit, seniors who are doing research for credit, are in the group of students that we're inviting to apply to come to campus to be able to use the facility. So if you're doing research in a faculty member's lab for credit, if you have not already reached out to the faculty member, please do so. But you can apply to come back to campus so that you can continue to do that research. For other students, many of the upper level labs, the faculty had already switched them to be online labs in anticipation of the fact that some students would not be able to be on campus. And so they're prepared to offer those lab courses. For the health profession students, I think you've all received an email from Miles Cahill, who's the director of health professions. He has been in touch with the admissions directors at the medical schools, and they are aware of the situation, and their recommendation to him to give to our students was that the most important thing was that the students continue to take their courses at their home institution using whatever the home institution was offering. And he's very confident that they will, that they understand that there are some labs that are going to be done virtually as opposed to in person this semester. In fact, a number of medical schools, including Harvard Medical School, haven't invited their first year medical students back. So they're doing their medical school education online as well.
Great. Thank you. We do have a couple questions about workload, and do we give faculty any guidance in terms of workload? Apparently some professors think that students have more time, so they should give them more work.
Well, you're seniors, you know that your faculty always think that students can do more and are often asking for a lot of work from you. I do think that faculty members, again, part of the work that they've been doing this summer is trying to think about, right, what's the right kind of work to do in an online environment? What are the sorts of things that are possible? I think also that one of the things that is true when we move to online learning is, you know, there's a lot of work that you do that you did on your own when you had a class. So when you went to class, you had already read the material for the class. Most of you, almost all the time, had already read the material for the class. And when you're in an online environment, faculty members are trying to give you different ways to engage. And so they are thinking about, you know, are there online resources that you can have access to? And some of that might seem burdensome, but some of that is a replacement for the other kinds of work that you would have been doing in an in-person experience.
Thank you. Dean Murray, I have a couple questions for you. Back to you about housing, and will housing assignments that have already been assigned hold for the spring semester, and will seniors have priority for res halls like Figgy?
Okay, so sorry, housing assignments that were already made, will they hold for spring semester? And then priority for Figgy, is that what I heard?
Yes.
So I think we had been pretty clear that we would, if we had students on campus in the fall, we would have everybody move out so that we could clean the residence halls, and then that would give us an opportunity to redo housing assignments for spring semester. And there are a number of reasons for that, because we had students who had decided that they would study remotely, and some of them are your classmates, seniors, who wanted the chance to come back and live on campus their final semester. So we will reopen the housing assignment process. Our goal, though, is to have as many, particularly seniors and then also first years, retain the housing assignments that you have if you like them, and you would have the opportunity to do that. That would be our goal, for particularly for seniors and then also for first years.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about health and safety? So for those students who are either on campus or approved to access campus, will there be testing, and what else will be in place?
Yes, sure. Yes, just like before, anybody with access to campus this fall will need to comply with our COVID-19 protocols. And these include the regular testing. We will still be doing testing twice a week, symptom tracking on a daily basis, physical distancing will still be in place, facial coverings will still be in place, contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine protocols will still be in place, and we would expect anybody with access to campus to comply with those protocols.
Thank you. A couple of clarifications on the housing question. So as we're redoing housing for the fall, for those seniors who are approved to come back, will they be able to live in senior apartments if they're granted an exception to be on campus?
So, we will most likely house class years together, and I'm unable to say right now where the housing will take place, because availability will greatly depend on the number of approved students, and then how many isolation and quarantine spaces we need and where we will host those spaces. So we will do our best to, especially for our seniors, to give you the best experience we possibly can, knowing that there are a number of other needs that we also need to meet.
Thank you.
Sure.
Will dining be available to those students who are granted access to campus?
So for off-campus students, you mean?
Or those living, yes. Sorry, seniors who are granted on-campus living in apartments, will they have access to Kimball?
Yes. So anybody who is granted the exception to live on campus will have access to the dining program. And, you know, again, I can't say where the housing will be, because I can't say right now where the quarantine and isolation spaces will be. But yes, anybody living on campus will have access to our dining program.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to go back to Provost Friege for a couple of questions. First, there are some questions about the January term. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So we are planning to have a limited number of courses that will be offered in the January term. It's a 3-week term. A number of those courses will be online. There are some plans for some that faculty have developed for some in-person courses. I want to emphasize that there'll be a limited number of courses available in that January term. They will be available to students. We will not charge additional tuition for those courses. Please don't plan on taking major requirements during January term. So if there's something that you need for graduation, please don't plan on taking it during the January term. We'll have a list of the January term courses available probably in mid-September, I think is when we'll have the list available.
Thank you. There are a couple questions about students in the arts. And so how should those students be thinking about exceptions, and should they be applying?
So if the students are in a course that needs facilities on campus, if they're taking a course required for graduation that needs the facilities on campus, then they should be thinking about applying for an exception. So for example, if you're a senior studio art major and you need access to the studios in order to build your portfolio, your required portfolio for your senior year, that would be a reason to request access to campus. If you have any questions, I would urge you to contact the department chair of your major department, because they can give you some guidance as to what things they're going to put in place to support you for your required courses.
Thank you. We have a couple questions about office hours for faculty members. Do we have any sense of what office hours might look like? Is there any consistent plan?
So the faculty members will have weekly office hours, and they will be on Zoom. That was going to be the case actually whether students were on campus or off, that faculty were going to have to hold virtual office hours for students, in part because having meeting with students in their office is not safe. And so there will be virtual office hours, and faculty members will be available by appointment as well. So all faculty members have been reminded that they need to post their office hours on their syllabus. So you should have access to their office hours when you enroll in the class.
Great, thank you. More questions coming in about housing. So back to Dean Murray. Some clarification about the plan for the fall semester. So those students who are approved for the fall semester, will they be living in singles or will they have roommates?
So everybody will have their own bedroom, so singles. And if we are housing people in the apartments, students may have an apartment mate, so one person per bedroom. Again, I'm not sure if we're going to house people in apartments or if we're going to reserve that space for quarantine and isolation, but you get the idea that we are moving to singles.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question about work study. So I don't know if that's Margaret or Dottie. Will we have work study available remotely? And if not, what will we do about students who were originally awarded work study as part of their financial aid package?
Yeah, so there will be opportunities to work remotely. A number of you I know have been TAs and tutors and graders for a variety of departments, and we're still going to need all of those, all of that assistance. And so there will be opportunities for students to work remotely. When we rebuild the financial aid packages for students, we are not going to assume a work study component. So that work study financial aid grant will be replaced by a Holy Cross grant, so that you don't have to work in order to meet your financial need. But there will still be some opportunities available. So there won't be work study, but there will be work.
Great. Can you speak a little bit about leaves of absence? Can students take a leave of absence, and what are the implications of that?
Sure. So any student can take a leave of absence, and the way you would do that would be to contact your class dean and request a leave of absence. The details of the leave of absence policy are available on the website. A couple of things you're going to want to know about a leave of absence. When you take a leave of absence, we're assuming that you're not enrolling full-time at another institution, so you can enroll full-time at another institution. You can take a couple of courses if you want while you're on a leave of absence, but please have those courses reviewed by the class dean before you enroll in them, because you want to make sure they're going to transfer to Holy Cross. And so the class deans will need to review the syllabus to make sure they're equivalent to Holy Cross courses. You can't advance your standing while you're on a leave of absence. So if you take a 1 semester leave of absence, then your expected graduation date will move by 1 semester. If you take a full year leave of absence, then your expected graduation date will move by a full year. But when you return from your leave of absence, we will reissue your financial aid. So if you take a leave of absence and then return to campus, we will reissue your financial aid. So make sure that you file your forms so that we can do your financial aid again.
Great. I have a couple final questions, I think, for Dean Murray. One very important question is whether Cool Beans will be open.
Oh, that's actually a question for Dottie. I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, actually, thanks. So dining's working on a plan. Kimball is absolutely going to be open, mostly grab and go meals at this point. They are also trying to assess Cool Beans and Crossroads and have some combination of Cool Beans, Crossroads, and the lobby shop open.
Great, thank you. Let's see, last thing for Dean Murray, sorry. Can off-campus students apply for access to campus? So if they are scheduled to live off campus, but they have a need to be in an art studio or something like that, can they apply?
Sure. The form is actually already open, and students have already started applying, so I would encourage you to go ahead and apply. Or you could wait until we develop the criteria. Either way is totally fine. We will communicate what the criteria are and the people we would most likely be granting access to. And so we'll communicate all of that, so you could wait if you wanted, or again, like I said, the form is open and you can find the link to that form in the announcement saying that we were going to be moving to a remote semester.
Great.
You're welcome.
I think I have one more for Dottie. Students are curious how they will get their books.
Yep, so we've contracted with MBS. Typically we have a contract with MBS and the books are delivered to the Holy Cross bookstore. This year, if you go on to the MBS Holy Cross link, you can order the books there, and if you happen to be approved to live on campus, you can ship them to campus or ship them to a home address.
Great, thank you. I think that's all we have time for. Father Burrows has a few words to wrap us up, so I will send it back to him.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you to my colleagues for answering and engaging all the questions that we've heard, and I know there's more to come. I'm sure we'll be having some more town halls before things start up, so please keep tuned for that. Please know how concerned we all are for the quality of your experience, especially this, your senior year. We're going to do everything we can to address both your questions, your concerns, and all that we hope this year can be. We clearly don't yet know what the spring is going to bring, and I think that's why the fall will be very, very important. I do ask that you take this pandemic very seriously. We have hired 2 epidemiologists to be consultants. We have a board member who is the chair of geographic and infectious diseases at Tufts University Medical School, and they have been advising us. And what we understand is that both the influenza, which typically comes in the fall, and combined with the pandemic is going to make things more difficult this year. Please don't, you're young and you're mostly healthy, but everyone is subject to this, and you never know when you're carrying something that's going to infect somebody that you don't know, someone who is older or a faculty member or a staff member here at the college. So we will be observing on our campus all the normal protocols. If you're on the campus, on the grounds or in buildings, you'll be wearing masks and social distancing, not just for yourself, but really for the sake of others. And it is that spirit of caring for others, being a woman and a man for and with others, that will be most important here, with them, but 6 feet away. So thank you for your patience, for your commitment to the college. And please know that we will continue to engage you on these questions. And if you have questions, further questions about academics, don't hesitate to call and contact your class dean or your advisor or the faculty members themselves. And if you have other issues about student life, you know who to contact, and we're here for you. So I hope you have a peaceful evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight.